Constipation, severe problem in advanced disease, but can happen even before onset of motor problems of the disease. A lot of issues with mood, depression, anxiety, partially because your disease is affecting your normal daily life, and it's depressing, it's understandable, but partially it is due to the nature of the disease itself. Patients have excessive drooling in advanced disease. Also, before I forgot, we are doing another study at the University of Colorado, injecting certain type of botulinum toxin type B, called Myablog, into salivary glands of patients with Parkinson disease, and it's extremely effective and safe for excessive drooling. Patients can complain on different weird, sometimes visual disturbances, double vision, blurry vision, sensory changes, numbness, tingling, muscle cramps are extremely common. Pain can happen, especially shoulder pain. Make sure you're working with your shoulders and go to those yoga classes they mentioned. Very, very important. Those of you who are my patient know how much of my time I spend talking about exercise. Don't forget that. Instability of blood pressure can happen specifically in the advanced disease. Excessive sweating, sleep disturbances, restless leg syndrome, and others. So Parkinson disease is a very complex disease, and it's caused by disbalance of certain neurochemicals in part of the brain that we call the basal ganglia, or extrapyramidal nervous system. It sits deep in the brain, right here, as you can see, and it consists of multiple collections of gray matter. You know how brain is gray matter and white matter together. So those nucleus are collections of gray matter, and there are several of them: caudate, putamen, or globus pallidus, consisting in two parts: substantia, nigra. It's called nigra because it should be black, but in Parkinson disease, that part is affected mostly. And subthalamic nucleus, our famous subthalamic nucleus, and many of you having stimulators sitting in that nucleus right now, and thalamus. So all together, those are basal ganglia or extrapyramidal nervous system. So this part of the brain is responsible for unconscious motor control, smoothness of the movements, coordination between muscle group, muscle tone, something which you don't have to think. If you're a healthy person, you don't have to think about that. Your body automatically produces this smooth, controlled movements when you want to do it. But in Parkinson's disease, that part is breaking down. And again, those of you who are my patients probably have heard from me that your unconsciousness motor control kind of is broken, but your thinking part of the brain, your hemispheres are still there. Therefore, you have to think how to move smoother and better. You have to take it over. It's very difficult. It's almost like thinking about breathing, but we have to do it. So yeah, the other thing is that we recently discovered that basal ganglia, or this extrapyramidal nervous system, are responsible for all of this. They play a role in behavior, mood, cognition, and speech, which we did not know before. We thought it's only movements, but cognition, memory, concentration, behavior is changing. That's why patients with Parkinson's disease have all this anxiety, depression, obsessive-compulsive behaviors at times. That's basal ganglia responsible for that. Well, this is a very complicated picture, and you really don't have to look into it carefully. But basal ganglia have several neurochemicals, and one of the dopamine is a key neurochemical or neurotransmitter, we call it, because it transmits pulse electrical signal in order to make movements. And this neurochemical dopamine is lacking in Parkinson's disease. And because the connections between basal ganglia are very complicated, and I will tell you, first it's a very simplified picture, but second, we really don't know very well yet how much different parts of the brain are connected with basal ganglia. Therefore, dopamine deficiency causes all these multiple problems in the body, not only movements. See, it's eventually connected to cortex, what I call thinking part of the brain, and downstream to our spinal cord and peripheral nervous system. So it tells you how complicated nervous system is, and specifically those pathways responsible for development of Parkinson disease. And this is that Substantia nigra I was mentioning before. In a healthy individual, it is nigra, it is black. But in individuals affected by Parkinson disease, it becomes pale because dopamine-containing cells are lacking there. Interestingly enough, that we are losing those cells and dopamine, all of us, you and those of you who are not affected with disease throughout our life. And it takes a while until somebody will develop Parkinson disease. And in advanced disease, it will look like that. Why it's happening? Well, we found out that there were those little pink, what we call Lewy bodies, little pink substances collected there. See how dark those neurons are, and inside sitting that Lewy body, the pink proteinaceous substance. And because of that, the cell loses ability to produce the dopamine. However, we still do not know, are those Lewy bodies bad guys or good guys? Are those bad guys which comes to the cell and destroy it, or they're collecting in the attempt of cell to restore the function? And I think by the time we will find out the answer to this question, that will help us to develop better treatments for Parkinson's disease. Very hot topic in any diseases where different substances are collected in the cells. Well, and of course we know how to treat Parkinson's disease. We cannot cure it, unfortunately, yet, but there are a lot of different types of treatment. Most of them are pharmacological treatment, different groups of medication, different types of delivery system. For example, recently we had a patch, skin patch, approved by FDA with one of the medications which improves symptoms. So it gives you 24 hours steady release of medication in the bloodstream. In Europe, there is a medication, there is a Sinemet in form of gastric pump developed called Duodopa. So it is almost like insulin pump in diabetics. It's quite complicated process and extremely expensive treatment, but something to think in advanced disease. It's not available in this country yet. And I'm comparing Parkinson's disease to my patients who are asking why should I take these medications regularly and frequently. I'm comparing it with diabetes. In diabetes, we do not have insulin, and the only way for patient to function normally to get this insulin from outside. As long as he or she is taking insulin on a regular basis, they're fine. It can work in the body. As soon as they stop, they can run into trouble. The same in Parkinson's disease. There is no dopamine. We did not find out yet how to make those cells to produce dopamine again, so we have to give it from outside to you to make you function better. And of course, surgical treatment. The only surgical treatment available now is deep brain stimulation. But there are a lot of different studies and research going on, and there are some emergent treatments on the horizon: stem cells, different neurotropic factors, gene therapy, and so on. They're not available, they're still very, very experimental, but maybe sometime soon we'll have different treatments. Well, I created this slide about medications in Parkinson's disease a couple of years ago when I was giving lecture at Stanford, and since that time I had to redo it like several times because so many new medications came to market. I was so proud of my slide at the beginning, but then it gave me a lot of work. So this is the overview of different medications which are used in Parkinson's disease. And you can see that there are a lot of options we can choose from, but all of the medications eventually have side effects.